Next. So, yep, okay. From the data we collect, we have 38 account total from the local official or official account, individual affected, 32 account that we have 80 videos, 78 screenshot photos, and we have a verification method like visual landmark, sign, buildings, GPS metadata checking. We also removal of duplicate report because some of videos maybe flood uh, in the another years, and so we validate and we make to be GIS data, and also in the flood location we have make a heat map data, so we know the distribution of the affected area and the impact of the flood disaster in Denpasar. Next. Okay, so this is the result from the spatial data. We compare it with the INARIS BNPB, with the official data from the government about the risk analysis of flood area. We can see we have 58 flood point area located in Denpasar and Badung, and we have a deep extending 2 meters in the critical urban area, and we have a high risk zone identified around river and drainage area or the river basin, in the two river basin, Tukat Badung and Tukat Ayung river basin, and critical impact also like in the RSUD or service affected, and underpass Dewaruchi is a transportation area, and traditional market, the economic area was affected by this flood. So we can now the distribution of this flood by this data from the people in the social media. Okay, next. So we compare with the official risk map. So this, we can see the data from the INARIS BNPB. Yes, we have 2 points. The consistency, we can know the most affected area aligned with a high risk category in the national flood risk assessment. But we have also anomaly, like in the Canggu and Berawa or in the Kerobokan area. You see in the round area, the circle, red circle, the anomalies, unusual flood pattern in the Canggu Kerobokan area with no prior risk assessment indicator. So before it's a low risk or no risk, but now it's become affected by the flood. So we know the insight is land use change, watershed degradation, and urban vulnerability was increased by the tourism activity or the land change regulation in Bali. Next. Okay, this is the key factor that make flood hazard in Denpasar and Badung. Is 3. The first is watershed degradation. We have Ayung and Tukat Badung watershed have lost much of their space, and the urban drainage collapse because from the flood map we have the flood was appear first in the drainage area in the urban area, and rapid urbanization, massive land conservation, rice field and green space transform into the resident area. We have loss of traditional ecological function. We have a subak system irrigation, but we have a degradation of that, and deforestation, of course. In the north area of Bali, in Kintamani, we have a degrade the forest conservation in there, and also the important thing is the improper waste disposal, because in the last years the government make a decision to stop the TPA Suung to make this making worse for the flood. Next. So we know the context of what the impact, and also we analyze with the multidimensional analysis framework in the global, meso, and micro dimension. What make Denpasar affected by that? Because if we compare it to global dimension, we now in the climate crisis, of course, and making the warming temperatures, like in, we have another anomaly cyclone like in Sumatra before, and also in Bali. We now the global dimension affected Bali, and meso dimension. We zoom in to the Bali itself, the land use change like watershed degradation, deforestation and forest reserve, conversion of rice field to urban area, and disruption of traditional water management system like Subak system also affected make the flood even in Bali. And the micro dimension in the ourselves, like in the individual, we have a problem within the local politics, urban planning, social behavior, waste disposal in the river, because last flood we have a lot of waste in our river. Is our problem in Bali also. So from this research, we know the flood in the Bali was a multi-systemic disaster, not only just by the climate, but also by how the government and how we do the making worse for this disaster. The conclusion is, we have the systemic disaster. It's not about the climate also. And crowdsourcing is one of effective tool to know how to translate the people voice from the social media to make it become a medium of advocacy and the knowledge productions. We know where is area affected by flood in the Denpasar, and also the recommendation. We use to crowdsourcing data to integrate with the strengthened adaptive capacity. And the last is community-based response, because the people was the first man affected by the hazard, so we need to improve the knowledge. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's very interesting topics, and how the crowdfunding can enrich the rich information science. I have experience as well how local government often lack information regarding the disaster event along the real time. So maybe we can move on to our next speaker. So I will invite Zaki Darmawardana.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. It is a pleasure to meet you today. Before I start the presentation, I want to tell you a little bit of story. So back in 2016, around 5,000 personnel of the state police evicted more than 2,000 people in informal settlements known as kampung in the northern part of Jakarta. One of the reasons being that this kampung was located in supposed to be green areas or green zone areas. And although there are some reports filed by the National Commission on Human Rights, or Komnas HAM, regarding the eviction, the government continued to construct and build the urban park. And today, the park known as Kalijodo. Okay. My name is Zaki Darmawardana. I'm part of the Wahana Riset 3.0 program here at the WR Indonesia. And today I want to present to you a topic that is titled Green Space Politics in Jakarta. Because what I told you, the story earlier, is actually more common happen in Jakarta. So a little bit of background of this presentation today. Jakarta faces rapid urbanization, with only 5.3% of the area is public green space. Associated with this number is a growing environmental concerns and issues, including excessive flooding, as we know, and recently the rising temperatures, or we know that as UHI, or urban heat island, and the next is air pollution. But also when we're talking about environmental governance, especially within the context of local governance, we also need to take back and thinking about what reformasi bring us. because after the reformasi, after this decentralized system, the environmental governance is part of the mandatory authority that is given to the regional government, including to managing green spaces. And since 2007, the Jakarta government has adopted green space intervention as the main policies to address the environmental issues that I said earlier. The reformasi also brings us local elections, right? And managing public and green spaces, especially in urban areas, is often become the political modalities of different urban political figures. We can think of some of the names, right? In Jakarta, these interventions also, a lot of the times, are socially contested, as evidence in the story that I told you earlier about what happened in Kalijodo back in 2016. Methodologically, I apply political economy analysis as the theoretical framework. I apply this analysis because it is useful to understand the underlying structures, institutions, and relations that influence interests, incentives, and bargains among social actors and also social groups, not only in urban governance, because I think this kind of analysis is also useful when analyzing different kind of governance, and it's very timely what Mas Oka said earlier about disaster happened in Bali, but also recently happened in Sumatra. And for the analysis, I applied qualitative approach to analyze the data sourced from grey literatures, policy analysis, and interviews. It is also worth mention that some of the data used in this presentation was part of the research conducted as part of the Wahana Riset 3.0 program titled Potensi Tata Kelola Risiko Kenaikan Suhu dari Jakarta, which conducted by me as a research assistant and also Mas Rido in the back as the research analyst, along with other individuals at WRI Indonesia. Okay, when we're talking about green areas, we know that after decentralization, especially after the enactment of Spatial Planning Law in 2007, the regional government are subjected to achieve the target of 30% of green spaces. However, for the Jakarta government, this is not an easy task because during the new order, significant economic growth in Jakarta attracts many people to come in. Whether it is to build an informal settlements known as kampung or attract large-scale development projects. However, it is also important to note that according to UPC, Urban Poor Consortium, an NGO that focuses on advocating the urban poor, they conducted a research that found that there's only around 200 hectares of areas of green spaces that are occupied by kampungs compared to almost 2,000 areas occupied by unsanctioned malls and luxury housing, for example. And when we're talking about green areas, it is also worth mentioning that urban parks, both public and private, contribute as the highest typology of green spaces, accounting more than 20%. Currently, the Jakarta government manage over than 1,500 public parks. However, though urban parks are accessed more by low-income families, they are concentrated in more wealthy neighborhoods, as shown in the table at the right side. This phenomenon is then characterized by Abidin Kusno, quite known urbanist, as the green turn in urban governance, especially in Jakarta. He agrees that advocacy for more green spaces provides a feedback loop between the government and the middle class support, because it's centered around the narratives and the notion of modernization and the aspiration for Jakarta to become a global city. Next. To achieve that target, it is not easy, especially when realizing that acquiring land in Jakarta is becoming expensive and more expensive. So sometimes that ended up in initiative to restore the occupied lands through forced eviction. So after the Reformasi, the first governor has a very staunch approach towards eviction, and that is continued by his successor, although within a different technocratic platform. So for example, under the campaign of making Jakarta a clean and greener cities, back in 2007 and 2008, this campaign evicted more than 6,000 families. The next period, the next administration, especially between the period of 2015 and 2018, is deemed as the period where the most eviction happened in Jakarta. LBH Jakarta documented almost 500 cases happened in those period, displacing over than 15,000 households. With restoring green areas and also blue and also green jalur hijau being one of the main justifications. Building on that analysis that said by Kusno earlier, Irawati and Wilson argue that the eviction of urban poor people were rather a calculated political move across platform to gain the support of the greening middle class. Why? Because it involved the narration of making the urban poor as the scapegoats of different problems in the cities, including floods and uncleanliness of the city. However, the urban poor were not silent. One organization named Jaringan Rakyat Miskin Kota or JRMK actually uses different strategies to contest forced eviction, including what is known as political contract, where they did a contract with the candidates running in the local elections. After failing in 2007 and 2012, they succeeded in 2017, which included adjusting zonings for kampungs from green areas to settlements, something that is deemed illegal, maybe. Whilst evictions still occurred, the number of evictions dropped significantly, as shown in the graph in the right side. Though there are no exact numbers after 2018, because I used the reports from LBH Jakarta, the governor received constant support from the organization, indicating the support for his softer approach towards the urban poor, even signing another political contract for his presidential campaign in 2024. Okay, with the eviction out of the options, the Jakarta government opted for different strategies. Especially during the pandemic, where the budget for developing green areas was being relocated for post-recovery programs, key supporting policies were enacted to improve the quality of green areas. Here at the right side, there's three regulation that focuses on the management of green areas, including tree management and protection, park provision management, and green space master plan, which enacted in the period of 2021 to 2022. Within this current administration, it is a very interesting point of view where the candidate won, endorsed by the two previous governors. The current governor adopts his predecessor approach, saying that he won't evict people and preserve dialogue. Out of his 40 quick win programs, 11 are related to climate change, with 4 related to green space intervention and other 2 programs on air pollution control. Currently, the government is planning on making new typology of urban park called micro or pocket park to accommodate building parks in the more dense areas, especially in settlements where there are a lot of people. However, there are some challenges associated with these efforts. The first one being the gap in the master plan, and the second being the strict partnerships. So it is difficult for communities to manage the urban parks that falls under the authority of the Jakarta government. Also, from the financing side, there's also some problems around weak enforcement of the obligation for private developers in building green areas, or we known as fasos-fasum gitu ya. And the last one being lack of incentives to build the green areas, especially when combining the different sources of financing. Okay, to conclude my presentation, I want to say that governing green spaces in Jakarta reflects a broad power dynamics among various social actors. It involves the conflicting narratives, and we need to also entangle those narratives, for example, like between urban modernity and justice. And the second one being Jakarta's green space governance follow a certain path of its institutional characteristics. However, I borrow this from Akimoglu, Johnson, and Robinson. The Why Nations Fail critical junctures, like the political contract happened in 2007, might occur and change the trajectory of the institutional path. And the last one being, though not straightforward, the political economy analysis of Jakarta's green space governance, and I also believe that other types of governance could be analyzed within this perspective, could identify factors influencing institutional change, which is very important to make a resilient and just future. Thank you.
So maybe we can start to for the next presenter. So I will invite Mas Bimario.
Test, test. Okay. All right. Let's start. So hello everyone. Such an honor to be here. Yeah. Let me introduce myself. My name is Bimario Kabaskara. I'm currently doing my study at Monash University Indonesia at BSD. So today I'd like to share one of my assessment called Beyond Parks, Vernacular Nature-Based Solutions for Special Justice in South Tangerang's Peri-Urban Kampung. Next. Next. So our study will mainly focus on Keranggan sub-district, which is located in the Setu district, especially at the South Tangerang city. So this area has a unique character as an area that still preserves its rural atmosphere amid the urban development, and additions to that being known for its home as an industries producing traditional snacks such as kerupuk and keripik, something like that. So Keranggan also serves as a hub for local economics activity with numerous UMKM or small and medium-sized business. Next. So despite its character, it sits within South Tangerang. As we know, South Tangerang itself is one of Indonesia's fastest growing cities. So according to several papers, South Tangerang's stark contrast between former housing developments like BSD City and Alam Sutra with modern infrastructure versus the kampung enclaves that struggling with limited access to services or something like green spaces. This imbalance creates a spatial fragmentations and environmental vulnerability. A study by Setia Ningrum shows that between 2011 and 2019, land use change and vegetation loss caused 2 Celsius rise in surface temperature, and urban heat island itself is not only an environmental challenge, it is a matter of special justice that disproportionately affecting low-income communities. Next. So while urban heat island has been widely studied at city scale, a very few analyses focus on the neighborhood level disparities, especially in peri-kampung like Keranggan. The link between heat and exposure and green space accessibility remain underexplored. So our objective, there is 3 objectives here. The first one to identify the urban heat island distribution patterns in Keranggan, and then assessing the green space accessibility, and then the last one recommending localized evidence-based strategies for ecological balance and spatial justice. Next. So we frame our study around the NBS, which is nature-based solutions, which try to integrate natural systems into urban design to deliver multiple benefits such as cooling, clean air, and social equity. However, the NBS itself cannot unintentionally trigger a green gentrification if not designed inclusively. Next. Next. So in order to identify the urban heat island distribution patterns in Keranggan, we use spatial analysis approach, and we try to utilize the satellite imagery processing using the Landsat 8 satellite imagery at this date. And then that can be obtained through this link. Next one. And then we try to assess the equity in a green space by extracting the vegetations first using the satellite imagery processing. We use the EVI codings, which were then, we classified them into based on their size to assess how the green space can effectively cool its surroundings, or the cooling effect here. So research that done by Galai said that a large green space around 1 up to 1 hectares can effectively cool the surroundings area up to 90 meters. And then the others one, like the medium size, will effectively cool up to 60 meters, and the small one will cooling up to 30 meters. Next one. So furthermore, after we got the buffer map, we tried to overlay those maps to find how much populations that was unserved by a green space cooling effect. So we used an estimated demographic data based on the pixel values from these data sets that gathered by the Meta Facebooks. Next. Next. So the results one. Over the past decade, Kerangan's land surface temperature has been rising significantly. In 2014, the average was about 20.5 Celsius, but by 2024, it reached 22.8 Celsius. So most area experienced 1 to 2 Celsius increase, with some hotspots rising up to 5 centimeters. These patterns confirms the urban heat island effect driven by dense development and vegetation loss. As you can see, the red box there is indicating a forming of islands, the heat islands. Next one. And then we try to assess the existing green patch, and we found that a large area with 1 hectare dominate about 834 hectares, and then the medium space cover around 110 hectares, and the small one just 58 hectares. Despite this, buffer analysis also revealed half hectares that still uncovered by the cooling effects. So including both formal housings and kampong areas that lack cooling benefits. Then how much is the population is unserved? Next one. So based on the grid estimations, approximately there is 87 residents, or about 1% only in Kerangan's total populations, are in zones that experience a temperature increase up to 5 Celsius without effective cooling vegetation coverage. Next one. So yeah, Kerangan green space distribution look fairly balanced, but that small uncovered zone signal an early thermal risk. That rising temperatures demand a proactive greening. The large parks may be helped, but they are impractical in dense kampungs. Instead, we try to propose a vernacular-based, nature-based solutions that consist of the household gardening, park plants, vertical gardens, and climbing vegetations, because this is a low cost and locally adapted strategies that can reduce indoor heat up to 3 Celsius and improve outdoor comfort. Next one. So how is the intervention managed? Next one. So the Kerangan itself has a strong ecotourism culture that provides a solid foundations for a community-driven greening. We try to propose that Pokdarwis, the local tourism group, as the key actor to connect institutional support with community capacity. So under this framework, households become the main beneficiaries, while the governments and private sectors maybe become the provider of the fundings and resource. Next one. So the implementation will start at the neighborhood level, that targeting of 10 to 20 homes in heat-prone zones, and then the plant choices combine resilience and cultural familiarity, such as sansevieria, aloe vera, and productive species like chili and lemongrass that can be supported as an urban farming. So to encourage participations, we propose like incentives such as starter kits, eco competitions, and digital storytelling. And this approach can transform households greening into a feasible, inclusive climate action that strengthens community identity and build long-term resilience. Next one. So the implementation will follow these 3 phases. The first one, the engagement and training, which residents will learn practical greening techniques, and then the implementations may be with the plan and distributions and technical supports. And the last one will be evaluations that using competitions and feedback to track success. So this bottom-up approach not only mitigates urban heat islands effects, but also empowers community, making climate resilience inclusive and scalable across Indonesia urban kampungs, not only Keranggan. So I think this can be implemented into several kampung in Jakarta also. Next one. So, and these are the metrics that can be used as a success indicator. Next one. All right, so the closings will be, so Keranggan already shows an early signs of urban heat island intensifications, but I think it's kind of still not really that high if we compare to Jakarta. So the dense kampungs can be worsen if we not addressing this later on. So our proposed solutions, the vernacular NBS at the household level can be solutions for this kind of problems. So the limitations of this research, including the data resolutions, the lack of ground validations, and scalability challenge. But the frameworks remains adaptable and provides a strong foundations for policy and future research. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mario. It's a very interesting topic because it's very, very comprehensive. You utilize the climate data, but also you encourage the participation from the grassroots level to make the policy and intervention. So I hope you guys still can keep up with us because we still have 3 more presenters that will be continued by, let's see, for the next presenter we have Mas Nabil Rizky for the presentation about Kalikasan at Kalikasan. It's a study case from the other country, so it's very interesting to hear. So yeah, Mas Nabil, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nabil, and today I would like our small project in Hermosa, Philippines. So it's a project from Young Planners Professional, ISOCARP, in Philippines. So first, Kalikasan at Kinabukasan is in Tagalog. It means balancing the nature and the future. So the idea is how we can accommodate the future of Hermosa while also mainstreaming the nature. So this is the map of Hermosa. I would like to introduce you to Hermosa. This is located in Bataan province and is located centrally in Central Luzon, and is strategically located connecting the Freeport zone and the Tarlac city and also the Manila city. Okay, next. So the municipality is one of the areas that have rapid development and want to become a new metropolitan area. And this collage of image actually show the landscape of the Hermosa. So the area have a coastal area in the east, and then have a central mainland in the center Pacific, and also the upland area in the west. Okay, next. So this nature makes Hermosa have a rich landscape, but in the other hand, it also come with a high risk of disaster, mainly flood and landslides. And the flood is in the purple area, and when we go there to do the field survey, yes, we come in the rainy season, we can feel how the flood can impact the mobility and also damaging the rice field. And this have become a seasonal problem, and because of this, it's really important to address this issue before they can continue the rapid development that they want to do. Okay, next. So we try to understand their motivation to grow to be a new economic area, but we must admit that before they can go any further, we must be adaptive and responsive to its true nature. Okay, so next. So in this mapping, we want to make sure that we don't want to stop their development. We not saying that you cannot grow to have new industry, but what we want to say is it is important to be adaptive and have a solution to balance a development that tackling the issue of disaster while have a growth in economy. Okay, next. So we unpacking what we can done in Hermosa with an approach that makes harmony in the development using local knowledge system and also responsive development. And next, okay, and this framework actually want to show what the government must accommodate in their strategic development. Yes, we want to have a rapid growth in economy, but we also must have a good flood management system and also pay attention to the social capital. And these three area that must be integrated, not separated, because this will affecting each other. Because of that, we must bridging the gap by acknowledging these three core area: social capital, economy, and flood management. We can adjust our capital, knowledge, and infrastructure support to integrate these three area that so the development can be more sustainable, more integrated to the nature. Okay, so that's how the idea of vision Kalikasan at Kinabukasan comes. Okay, next. And then we try to elaborate more this vision to three missions, which first more about harmonizing the modern development to its natural unique landscape, and then have a mitigation adaptation with water sensitive design. And lastly, we try to be more participatory with community and also local knowledge. And it is also important that we have a step-by-step movement to achieve it. So we have 3 steps in 9 years, which are integrated in their spatial planning system. Which in Indonesia we have a spatial plan that run in 5 years, but in Philippines it's 3 years, and I think it makes more agile and dynamic to adaptive about the new agenda or issue. And so the first 3 years we have a quick win. It's a more a fast strategy that can tackling the issue right now, and then we have a short-term strategy that need a minimal effort, and we have a long-term strategy that need a continuous effort to achieve it. Okay, next. So maybe I would like share more about the water sensitive urban design. So this idea is about an urban design that thinking all the water element in the city as a primary base of the city, and how can we design the city to be more adaptive to it. We think it's very effective to Hermosa because of the flood disaster management and to have development that resilience and adaptive. Okay, next. So to implement it, we must also aware that Hermosa have a different topology. So we must have a different approach that design more specifically in the area that there are 3 main zones in here. So we can see the rural area, it's the blue, and the urban center, and the new engine growth, they mainly gonna regenerate industry and new economy district. Okay, next. So the first one is the urban center. Next, maybe. Okay, so this area is the city center and the settlement area. This focus on this area is going to be to have a design that sensitive to the water and nature while improving the quality of life of the citizen. So mainly, we're focusing on developing the low space and the open space that are already there to be more active, to have a green or blue public open space, and also for the housing is to be more sensitive to the rainwater design. Maybe next. So this is the some image that they can implement it there, and then next one. It's the agri and aquaculture zone. So next. This is the area that we want to maintain. This area where we can preserve because it's have an impact to the nature and becoming a self-sufficient city. So the approach in this area is more about having a green and agroeconomy, not doing a big economy or industry here, while also preserving the area to have a natural habitat and green barrier to protect it. Next one. So this is the image that maybe it's benchmark. Okay, next. And lastly, we have the new urban growth, and this is the area that gonna transform and have a rapid development in its landscape. So yes, the area is what we want to make sure to be sustainable and resilient to the climate and disaster. We try to maintain the area to have a sufficient green element and water permeable area, and to have more green industrial and green building design in here. So next, these are the benchmark that can be applied. So with all this effort, we hope in the future that Hermosa can have a big impact in sustainable development and also resilient design planning. And next, I think that's all. This is some our image in our team process and also our discussion with the city mayor. Okay, next. Okay, to finish this session, I think I want to quote Jane Jacobs because it's in line with this process. So, the city is the lab for the design, so that we can do anything. But it is important to find a balance in the development to be more aware with its natural condition. Balance between the future and the nature to achieve sustainable and resilient development. Okay, I think that's all. Terima kasih, thank you, selamat.
Thank you. It's very insightful initiative in the Philippines. Yeah, even though it's another country, but we have a very similar cases in Indonesia. So maybe we can for the next presenter. Please, Mbak Tiara, can continue the session. We have another 10 minutes.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction. So good morning and afternoon, everyone. So I'm Tiara. I'm a coastal and climate resilience engineer from Wita Berembos, Indonesia. So we developed this research based on our project experience as well as some desk study from multiple research sources. So our title is how we can pair integral design as well as adaptive pathways so that in the end we can come up with a resilient and also integral coastal protection solutions. So for the next slide, please. Next. So this is the key message that we found based on our projects. So we know that involving local communities in projects is sometimes very challenging. And then from projects, we understand that we really need to involve them if we want to aim for a resilient measures or sustainable measures. So integral design in the framework of local communities can really help that process. And then if we pair that with an adaptive pathways, which helps decision maker to make long-term planning in terms of climate resilient design, it will be helpful as well. So the government and also a country can be more adaptive towards the change of the climate. So this is like a quick example. So this dike is located in Luar Batang in, I would say, maybe West Jakarta, if I'm not mistaken. And then you see that the dike is very thin, like only this width. I think if I stand on here, it is only just me standing here, and then I can just falling to the side of the dike. And then you see that it's very crowded with fishermen boats and also with housings. And you see, you can imagine if you stay like this for the next 50 years, what would be happening? It will be like collapsing, and it cannot even wait for another climate change forcings. But then what if we change this to be something like this, more wider, stronger, providing public space for the people? So this is located in North Jakarta, in Kalibaru. Of course, it will be a challenge, so that means maybe you need to relocate people and etc., etc. But it might be possible if you involve integral design principles, like making dialogues with local communities, and also make a perfect plans for the future, not only for the next 5 years, or not only for next month or tomorrow, but also for the next 100 years. So could you please go to the next slide? And so these are some reflections. I believe that we all know this news, that first in the North Jakarta, we had this event where I think around 10 years ago, there was like initiative to make reclamation island at the north part of Jakarta. And many NGOs, especially local fishermen, against the idea. Because of what? Because the government did involve them during the planning. They just plan, design, okay, yes, we will construct this in your area, and then you need to relocate, and blah, blah, blah. And then what happened to the local fishermen? Of course, they will not agree with the idea because they were not involved in any of the discussion. And then we also know that maybe recently, around 2 months ago, in Cilincing, in North Jakarta, the local fishermen also very angry because they think that this structure, the perpendicular structure from the shoreline, hinders them to reach the sea. So that also shows that even until now, there's a minimum involvement of local communities during the planning process. And we also see here like this example in Muara Baru. I'm not sure, so I took this from a news in 2025. I'm not sure whether it's still like this. So you see that it's not strong anymore. What you can expect from this kind of thin wall to protect Jakarta, of course. And this is also from the port in Semarang. They apply like temporary structures to protect the area, which shows that they are more reactive rather than adaptive. So they don't really know, like, okay, what will happen next year? Will there be like extreme flooding next year? So when the disaster comes, what they can do is just to place temporary structure, not making like a clear plan for the next 100 years or 50 years and on and on. Please, next, please. And so how can we involve local communities in our projects? So we applied these integral design principles. So basically there are 5 steps in this loop. So first you need to understand the problem, of course, but you will be, there will be a lot of benefit by involving local communities from here because they understand much more about the area. Maybe from your study you say that, yeah, the flooding can be 2 meters high, but is that correct? So we need to validate that with the local communities. They also can provide us some insights about where the floodings are and then how severe is the flooding and so on and other things. And then the next one is system analysis. You need to understand what are the jobs of the local communities, for instance. Are there fishermen, or maybe they are living in the shoreline but they are not using the sea anymore. Maybe they are now like part of industrial ecosystem. And then the third step is function analysis. It's more like how the local communities utilize the area. And then from these 3 steps, it fits into the 4th step, that is designing the solutions. So you'll end up with multiple measures, not only one, but maybe you can have like coastal dike, or like a green coastal dike, or maybe offshore seawall, or just mangroves, or no measures at all. And then the last one is to select solution. And this is the one loop, and then after the 5th step, you can restart again to the 1st step, and then make another loop. So you have like 1, 2, 3, more and more loops until the end, the loop end, and then in the end you will get the sustainable measure. And then if you go next, so we have like a example from one of our project in Welang. So we did the first 3 steps, like problem understanding, system analysis, and functional analysis by involving the local communities. So we went to the site. We really asked the local communities, what do you think about the flooding? Is the flooding is very severe? How does it impact your houses? And how would you look about that? And we also need to understand what they expect about the area. For instance, okay, I'm an engineer, and then I would say, yeah, we would like to build this river dike. Would you agree with that? I mean, maybe they need to access the river to catch some fish and so on. So of course, that needs to be included in the design. We only can know that if we really ask the local communities what they want. But if we don't ask, then our design will just, okay, just gray structures without involving local voices. And then we also introduce the local communities about our initiatives. So what our objectives are, why we are coming to that area. And then we also see the functions. And from these 3 steps, it fits into the development of solutions. So we have like multiple measures from non-structural until structural measures. And then we filter the measures together with the local communities. We really explain to them, okay, so this is for the case of rivers. So what river dike is, what nitro-based solution is, and where they should be applied, and other things. So we try to make local communities understand about our proposals, and then they help us to filter out the measures. So measure filtering is not only based on our technical capacities, but also based on the local communities, the voice from local communities. And then we come to another loop, and then we try to detail the measures, and then we end up with the sustainable measures, not only from the perspective of technical capacities, but also from the perspective of local communities. Next, please. So that was for the integral design principles involving local communities. And then next, so next I would like to explain about how the adaptive pathways can be implemented. So I think, I will present that adaptive pathways. I will give you an example of implementing adaptive pathways in the North Jakarta Bay. So maybe you have like heard like multiple solutions that is possible for North Jakarta, like coastal dike or offshore seawall, or maybe no protections at all, like NTICD and so on. But again, this is just as example. So, okay, it would be very hard if there's no slide here, but actually adaptive pathways like shows like multiple measures over here, and then you will have like the starting point. Maybe you can decide, okay, I will start with a certain measure, and then from that measure you need to move to another measures before the design, the end of the design lifetime. So yes, okay, I think we shall just go to the next slide. Yeah, so this is the example for the North Jakarta Bay. So this is how we try to apply adaptive pathways. Again, this is example, so people can have much more ideas about the possible solutions, but this is just to give you a big idea of what it is. So you have the measures here, so from the offshore seawall, the NCICD, and also you have the protect solution, coastal dike. You have the accommodate solution, like making the houses like maybe stilt houses to make them adapt to the water. And maybe if infeasible, you need to retreat, of course, although it is not possible for Jakarta, but retreat is still an option. And last is to reduce land subsidence. So basically you need to decide where you are. So we see that in Jakarta now we have like the coastal dike, but then this is the decision node. So this is the tipping point. So basically the end of the lifetime. So you need to move to another measure before the end of the lifetime of that measure. So you would not see that coastal dikes will collapse. But so for instance, like you have to decide in these decision notes, you need to discuss what measure is possible, and then you need to move to another measures, and then that things is going until like if the climate condition is higher, and then but if we compare with the condition of land subsidence, you see that if you try to reduce the land subsidence much more, you will have less need of protecting the coast because you have less hazard to the sea. So if you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, yes, next. Yep. Yep. Yeah, so yeah, this is the final slide, actually. Yeah, so actually the framework is you need to involve the integral design principles as well as the adaptive pathways. So we know that there are 5 steps in there. And then from the design solutions and also selecting solutions, you may end up in these measures. And then these measures can be assessed from these 5 steps to select one measure, and then they should be applied in these adaptive pathways. So you have multiple measures here, A, B, C, D, E, which are from here, which are from the integral design solution principle, and then you need to decide which measure you need to go after a certain years before the end of the design lifetime based on the integral design as well. So this framework could be very useful if you would like to apply a resilient and also integral coastal protection solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very insightful framework. So I am sorry because I'm listening to you. We can have the next presenter, and lastly, our last presenter will be presented by Angelica.
Yeah, I would also invite my research partner, Hernan Bagaskara Kurniawan here. Okay, so we're moving to Padang City, and as well big condolences for our friends affected by the flood, and also for the families. And I hope our humanitarian action keeps on assisting them. Okay, so our research where we will be speaking about spatial and governance dynamics of post-2009 earthquake urban development in Padang City. So basically we want to see the urban development patterns developing after the earthquake in 2009, which is, you know, if we see that the Padang West Sumatra was affected by the earthquake in 2009, which is quite significant, with significant impact. Next slide, please. Okay, so Padang City is a capital of West Sumatra and has a total population of nearly 1 million residents. And It is located in Indo-Australian tectonic plate, which explains why the city is in the high risk of earthquake and also tsunami. And on your left, you can see the spatial patterns of the earthquake hazard level and also the tsunami risk zone. And if we see in the document from the government document, out of the 9 disaster types, earthquake and tsunami has a high hazard level. But if you see, almost all the other 9s have quite a significant hazard level as well. And if we see on the blue box there, the West Sumatra earthquake in 2009 and its magnitude in Padang City, it has resulted death in nearly about 313 people with damaged building and estimated economic loss of nearly $50 billion US. So it's quite significant. And next slide, please. Oh, okay. So this is the methodology. So the first research question, we would like to see the spatial development and also the disaster management policy trajectory after the 2009 earthquake. And the research, in the second research question, we would like to see the land cover changes and the settlement expansion in tsunami-prone areas affect flooding risk in Padang. So we would like to we would show you a lot of quite a lot of maps in the research in the second research question. And the third research question, we would like to see the governance challenges that hinders the implementation of disaster mitigation oriented spatial policies. And we're moving on to the first finding. Hernan, over you.
So we're getting to the first finding. This is the trajectory of the spatial planning policy in Padang. So before the 2009 earthquake, the Padang government, they have enacted RTRW, or the spatial planning document in Padang. However, they do not incorporate any disaster risk reduction measures within that. So they focus more on the economic and social aspects. And then the earthquake happened, the earthquake occurred, and then that prompted the government to revise the RTRW, the spatial planning, in which they finally, eventually incorporated disaster risk reduction measures. And this includes restricting development of residential area within high hazard zones. That they include also the plan for infrastructure, disaster mitigation infrastructures. And then they also introduced risk zone classification for disasters. And then over the years, over the next couple years, they consistently refined, consistently revised the RTRW to put more, to integrate more disaster risk reduction measures. And for example, in 2013, we've seen that the government of Padang, they have regulated regarding the building density within hazard risk zone. And then moving on to 2014 to 2019, they have further introduced and refined the integration of disaster risk reduction measures, such as they first introduced the disaster risk assessment, or KRB, Kajian Risiko Bencana, as the guideline for the spatial planning, and then furthermore on the tsunami safe zone and EDC, etc. But with all this, then you'd expect the development to be ideal to abide with what they have decided within the planning documents, to abide by these rules. But then question arises regarding whether or not that these have been implemented, well within Padang City. So we're going to the next research finding. We try to see whether or not that the spatial planning policy has directed the settlement away from the hazard risk zones. So in this finding regarding the land cover transformation in Padang, we've seen that we've observed that there's not much of a change in terms of land pattern development in Padang, in which built-up area, they consistently grow and nearly doubled, and they encroach on agriculture and green space area, reducing the water retention capacity. Next. And we would like to observe whether or not that settlement continues to grow within tsunami high hazard zones. And we've proved that, well, yes, what has been enacted in the spatial planning, in reality, it sort of contradicts with what has been written in the spatial planning, in which we found that there's an association within higher density, higher building density within higher risk tsunami zones. So settlement area, they still continue to grow within high hazard zone, within high hazard tsunami zone. And also, there's an interesting fact regarding, there's a widening gap of density level between high hazard and low hazard zones in post 2009. So I would say that this is like, in Bahasa Indonesia, just like pemanfaatan rumahnya nggak tobat in Bahasa Indonesian terms. So they still grow within the shoreline, within the near the shoreline. And regarding the expansion, although that built-up areas has mostly expand in low hazard zone, which is further away from the shoreline, there are still a continuous, a moderate amount of built-up areas that still grow within the high hazard zones. And then moving on to the next finding, Banjo.
And the expansion and the intensification of the settlement, we know that it increases the impact of hydrometeorological disaster events that we see lately in the news. It increases particularly in flooding and landslide in Padang City. And so if you see in the past 5 years, floods and landslides can occur as many as 15 to 16 times per year. And increased settlement expansion in low tsunami zones, and it's driven by land use conversion. So it actually has a positive correlation between the settlement development and the increase of disaster risk. And if we compare to the two major flood events in the past, which are 2016 and 2024, we can see that the magnitude of the impact is actually increasing. So if you see the flood points between the two period, in March 2016 and March 2024 is actually quite increasing significantly. With the height is also the height of inundation is also increasing from 1 meter to 2 meters, and the total area affected is also increasing as well from around 900 hectares to 2,000 hectares, which is actually quite huge. And moving on to the next slide. And as previously mentioned about the gaps in implementing disaster mitigation oriented spatial policy, we can see this across 3 groups. So the first, we can touch upon the financing mechanism. The first one is lack of financing support for building earthquake-resistant houses at household level. So there is no support for houses, for individuals who want to contribute for making themselves disaster resilient. And the second is absence of robust risk transfer mechanism for private buildings used as evacuation centers, shelters. So basically, if there is disasters happening, there is nowhere to go, because private sectors are not going to implement, are not going to be involved in that. And the governance in the institutions, so the first one we identify is difficulty in operationalizing the national disaster management and spatial planning policy at the subnational level. And in Padang, both regulations did not quite address the customary land ownership system, or ulayat if we know it. And the second, the KRB, Kajian Risiko Bencana, has not become a primary reference as urban development guidelines. And the third is regarding the infrastructure and spatial policy implementation. The evacuation route is as well hindered by land acquisition process due to ulayat land ownership, and as well as it's more technical, building codes and standards remain lacking in existing spatial regulations. And the third is conflicting economic and disaster management priorities, especially if we compare between the 2 periods of RTRW. Our recommendation, this is some of the options. So the first is in regards to financing mechanism, we can establish disaster pooling fund. So it's basically, it consists of multi-source financing that includes financing, incentive-based financing for private sectors, and also to establish household level subsidy mechanism. And of course, last but not least, strengthening local disaster and urban governance framework, and also strengthening the DRR-oriented infrastructure planning. And there should be an harmonization of coastal infrastructure planning as well, because we know that Padang is a coastal city. I think that's it from our side. Thank you very much. Over to you.
For our all speakers for this session, I have been reminded before twice, so let's continue with the Q&A session. So I have a set of questions, but due to the time limitation, I will summarize my question in just one question for each speaker. So as you can see, there is still many gaps in the climate change adaptation practices. So based on your research or your project, in your opinion, how to integrate or advocate your result into existing environmental and climate policies? And what do you think we must do to strengthen the role of young researchers as many of you in this policy making? So that's just my question. So maybe I will pass to
Yep, terima kasih. Thank you for the question. The first is, I think, how to advocate the voices from our research is how we can link it to the government, I think, because sometimes in the disaster situation, some government is close, like the data and the persuasive communication. So yeah, we need to change our, because we youth and young. I think we have special communication, like we use the social media, like our do in Denpasar, we use the social media like making a storytelling, storytelling narrative to tell the government, to tell the people about how disaster happened in Denpasar. And after we made the storytelling, we have attention from the government. So I think, yeah, we need to change our communication with how young and youth do in like a social media. And the last question, I think. Oh, okay. In the policy making, yeah. After we have discussion with the Wali Kota Denpasar in the last month, we know that the government in sometimes, because some situation, they have a lot, they don't do a research better in the situation like a disaster. They have the document like KRB, like rencana contingency for the flood, but sometimes it's just paper, but it's not dissemination to people in grassroots. So I think, yeah, it's a kesempatan for we to youth and young as a communicator, science communication, from the policy like government to the community, to sharing tentang tadi rencana kontingensi kepada masyarakat. So memudahkan bahasa itu lebih awam ya bagi masyarakat. Gini tuh.
Thank you, Mas Ida. Let's go to you.
Yeah, thank you, Mas Sena, for the question. I wanted to try to stick true to my presentation. So I would probably say how to integrate more better planning, you might say, in the adaptation sectors. I think this applies into different ranges of agenda to be applied in the context of planning. But I believe I also want to address the second question by this answer. I believe my research has shown that I think direct political engagement is something that is very important when we're talking about trying to making changes. I often see, at least in my personal point of view, that we as a researcher or as a scientist, you might say, often feel that we are belong in the vacuum, then that we live in the technocratic space of decision making. So we only our roles are to provide the data, and we give the data to the policymakers, which is at the same time are political actors, and we naively believe that we could persuade them just by giving what do you might say a sufficient data. But at least from what I believe, then what also I showed in the presentation, that is not enough. I believe the proper engagement with political sphere. Yes, in my presentation, it is shown through something that people call political contract or contract politic. But I believe it goes beyond that kind of processes. And just recently, we are talking about a lot of city spectrum. Recently, I believe some of you are also know this, Zoran Mamdani, the new mayor of New York City, and I think that creates a maybe an example for us, not only as a young people, but also people who are working in the sphere of making changes happen. That we need to engage in a political conversation more thoroughly and goes beyond the election processes, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so I will try to answer this based on my research. So actually, my research actually has already grounded actually, because the people at that place is already have their own agendas like the ecotourisms, and me as a young researcher, is trying to look how to connect our agendas and the community agendas and bringing up those into the government, like the bottom up level, because I think every plan will be work good if the people of the community can be work as well, like having their sense of belonging to their places. So I think that's the key, and we are as the young researchers, maybe we can be like a consultants, like trying to connect them to the government, because we are the pioneer of our homes, something like that.
So as a bridge or connection here between the community and the government, so yeah, maybe we can next to Mas.
Okay, I think first of all, the government must admit that they are in the dangerous zone. They have a disaster like Mbak Angelica said. In Padang, they before the 2009, they not accommodate the disaster in their spatial plan. So the first step, I think we must admit that we are in the disaster area, and we must acknowledge that with this condition, we must incorporate this disaster planning management in our spatial plan. And also we must have a process of participatory. Actually, in our second team in the Philippines doing the charrette, but not in my team. So they talk with the forum of the citizen to communicate that they are in the disaster area and what they want as a community to be to have in the area. And also this is also important to have a direct communication with the local leader in there, especially in the political aspect. And from there, the disaster plan management can be implemented in the spatial plan. And I think for the younger generation, I actually also are in the community of Lacuna Kota. We mainly move in the green area, public space in the city. And I think what I can see from Lacuna, the government tend to don't want to move first. So they just see the actor in the local and the community, the younger people, and when the younger people can have mengumpulkan massa gitu, so and then the government want to collaborate with us. I think that's all what I can say. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so I would like to reflect on my previous presentation. So if we see that the current process of implementing projects is very basic. So you did like pre-feasibility study, feasibility study, basic design, and then up until construction. But if you see that like between Ministry of Public Works and then the ministry, I'm not sure the name of the ministry, but the ministry who works with the local communities or with the social aspects, they are separated. So we did like a project of uh, making the nature-based solution guidelines, and we worked together with the Ministry of Public Works, and we saw that if we suggest a Ministry of Public Works that, yeah, if you would like to design like river dikes or maybe coastal protections, you need to also assess the environmental problems, and you need to also involve local communities. But then in the end, Ministry of Public Works just say, well, that's not my scope, that's other ministries, so I'm not sure how to do that. So while actually most of the flooding problems are under Ministry of Public Works, so I'm not sure how to do that, but I think at some point, the framework that I showed previously, the integral design loops and also the adaptive pathways, that should be covered not only under Ministry of Public Works, but also, let's say, Ministry of Environment, the ministry which work together with the local communities and also social aspects. So there should be like a badan, like, you know, like an organization that not only covers one ministry but also multiple ministries, so that we can form an integral design solutions. Because integral design solutions cannot only be done with one ministry focusing on technical aspects. It should involve local communities, environmental problems, and other things which are not only under Ministry of Public Works. And then how we can involve young researchers in this research theme. I think this very event could be a very nice example, because yeah, as a young researchers, don't think that you have a limited capacity. We see that a lot of assessment maybe seems very well, very amazing. You can just give your voice, maybe in social media or just based on the projects that you did or what you see in environment, and then you can just join this kind of event or just post it in social media, like the ministries and so on. So just try to spread the voice, not necessarily like publishing a paper, not necessarily like that. As long as you try to see the problems, to find the solutions, and then share it with people, I think that is enough for young researchers for now. Yeah.
Thank you, Tiara. Thank you for promoting the WRA mission. So yeah, maybe the last from Angelica.
Yeah, I personally believe that what is happening in Tanah Aceh and Sumatra is a momentum in itself. So I think I can only speak to those in this room. Like, I cannot represent all of the youth in Indonesia. I know that, you know, from Aceh to Papua, we are very different, but beautifully different. So keep voicing our voice in social media. I believe that this is really the momentum, because it takes 700 people, 700 deaths now to make a change. And please do voice your aspiration in social media, make comments, make our digital world busy with change, you know, keep voicing it, and hopefully that there is no next Aceh and there is no next Sumatra. I think that's it from me.
Okay, let's give an applause for our speaker. Are we still have time, Panitia? Maybe just one question from participant.
Okay.
Please introduce name and institution.
Wait, I have so many.
Please, kayak udah pada lapar semua.
Okay, wait. I know that it's already lunchtime. My name is Aditya. I'm from UNESCO Intergovernmental Oceanography Commission. My first question for the first speaker: have you ever considered about the urban spatial planning and its local wisdom due to the flash flooding? And I would like to simplify it again for the second speaker. Based on the UN Habitat World
cities report on May 2025, Indonesia has urbanization pattern for almost 60%, and it has an implication to the many social aspects. So, have you considered of the commitment of sustainable settlement through the, I don't know, in 2021 we call it Kampung Improvement Program, what I don't know, maybe today it come Kotaku or something like that. And then for the third speaker, I want to ask about the nature-based solution, because you already mentioned it, but have you considered about the biodiversity, because we are in the tropical country, so we have insects problem. And then the last one for Mbak Tiara, because we are the same coastal engineer. And to be honest, this is my dissertation topic. Anyway, so I want to ask you, how can you literate the people about our no regret policy? Because the coastal dikes in Jakarta is already become no regret policy. And how you literate our people about that? And we are in the UNESCO. We have a project about the ocean literacy as well. So maybe it's going to be your consideration for the future. And then in the regards of the adaptation pathway, what kind of tipping point that you have been considered? Because Jakarta is a multi-complex disaster, and we cannot rely only one disaster, only like land subsidence or sea level rise or something like that. And you already know that adaptation pathway as well has a negative impacts as well. And then the last one, what is your opinion for the outer seawall of the NCICD? And please, I want to ask you about the same terminology. Thank you. Sorry for the so many questions I already asked. Thank you.
So maybe, let's Mas Ida mengawali jawabannya. I'm sorry, but due to the time limitation, can you make a quick answer for this?
Yeah, just simplified.
Yes, ya, terima kasih. Maybe I use the bahasa for the prevent. Terima kasih pertanyaannya. Sebenarnya pertanyaan singkat, tapi ini yang menjadi concern kita bersama sebenarnya di Bali, bahwa apa yang terjadi banjir kemarin itu tidak hanya tadi bencana ekologi, tapi ternyata pergeseran budaya kita gitu. Kami banyak sekali menjadi venue untuk event-event internasional kayak GPDRR, World Water Forum gitu ya. Sayangnya kita tidak selamat dari banjir. Itu yang jadi pertanyaan kami, bahwa jangan-jangan Trihita Karana ini juga menjadi hanya mempercantik di luarnya Bali gitu ya. Simbolisme itu. Nah, sehingga sebenarnya banyak sekali gerakan anak muda sekarang untuk mengkritisi sebenarnya kira-kira bagaimana Trihita Karana di zaman modern ini bisa diaplikasikan gitu kan. Apakah hanya dengan berritual saja, atau sebenarnya sudah mulai ke arah ke science based juga gitu, berritual tapi juga ada implifikasinya ke arah keilmuan begitu Mas. Tapi mungkin itu jawaban yang cukup panjang, tapi permasalahannya di situ sih, memang pergeseran budaya itu juga menjadi isu di banjir kemarin. Mungkin terima kasih Mas.
Ya, saya juga jawab bahasa Indonesia aja biar lebih cepat gitu ya, nggak perlu mikir dua kali gitu ya. Ya tadi pertanyaan soal Kampung Improvement Program ya.
Kotaku.
Iya, Kotaku. Saya sebenarnya saya pribadi tidak begitu mengikuti kebijakan Kotaku ya. Kotaku kan punya pemerintah pusat. Ya, tapi tadi ada Kampung Improvement Program. Kalau di Jakarta itu memang ada programnya, dan saya cukup tahu CAP, CIP waktu itu tahun 2018, dan beberapa kemudian kampung yang jadi tadi sempat disampaikan juga bagian daripada objek kebijakan tersebut. Mungkin apakah kemudian riset saya mempertimbangkan hal tersebut, pendekatan itu sebenarnya tidak dimasukkan dalam analisisnya, tapi yang kemudian penting perlu disadari adalah problem soal perbaikan kampung di Jakarta itu cukup kompleks karena sebenarnya sudah ada beberapa upaya untuk memperbaiki, dan sepertinya ini juga yang terjadi di program Kotaku. Status kampung kemudian menjadi penting dalam artian legalitas terhadap tanah itu jadi kunci. Padahal di saat yang bersamaan ada cukup banyak kampung yang punya problem soal legalitas, dan kalau kita ngomongin birokrasi pemerintah itu bisa jadi temuan dan jadi bisa dipenjara karena itu gitu. Nah, itu yang sebenarnya kemudian bagian dari analisis penting gitu ya ketika melihat dinamika perkotaan yang tadi juga Mas sudah tambahkan, sepertinya sejak 2010 tuh dan tahun 2020 60% udah 60% Indonesia udah tinggal di kota, dan itu akan jadi bahasan yang sangat menarik gitu ke depan. Terima kasih.
Sama-sama.
So your question is about the
Consideration.
the NBS, the consideration of. I think my research not really go deep into that kind of ecosystems scopes, because I think I might kind of overlook, because it's kind of the spacious choosing, because the plantations maybe out of my scope. Maybe I think instead of using plants that are, if the consideration is to menghindari serangga seperti itu, kayaknya mungkin bisa coba untuk pemilihan tanamannya yang difokuskan mungkin kayak lavender or something like, yang bisa ngusir serangga gitu. I know ini nggak terlalu menjawab sih sebenarnya, cuman ya saya sebenarnya jujur agak overlook yang bagian situnya.
Just to be considered aja. Karena itu pernah contohnya untuk yang di Belanda itu pernah diuji coba. Jadi pas waktu summer itu jadi yang tanaman yang di atas halte bisnya mereka itu berbunga blooming kayak gitu. Jadi akhirnya banyak mendatangkan serangga. Itu di negara 4 musim, sedangkan kita tropis all the year bakal seperti itu. And it will become the problem, and malaria as well.
Ya, terima kasih banyak Mas. Siapa? Mas Aditya atas pertanyaannya cukup banyak ya. Jadi yang pertama itu tentang coastal dike sebagai no regret policy, terus tentang tipping point dan juga adaptive pathways, tentang hal negatifnya. Terus apa menurut saya tentang offshore seawall. Kayaknya itu ya intinya. Pertama-tama kita bisa discuss after sesi ini tentunya kan.
I know.
Tapi but the point is in every policy that you would like to recommend or that you would like to apply, every measures, do not miss the local communities. Do not forget the environmental impacts. Of course, offshore seawall is one of the option, but first, before coming to that conclusion, you need to solve the problem, the potential problem first. So we see that North Jakarta, there are a lot of fishermen living there, although this is the capital city, but fishermen are still there, thousands. So try to communicate with them, come to their houses, like talk with them. Do you agree with the offshore seawall? So if there is offshore seawall there, what would you expect for you to happen? For instance, do you agree with that? Do you need like a specific access to the sea? If I design it something like this shape, would you be able to still access the sea, for instance? Try to look for what they expect from that offshore seawall. And then offshore seawall, it can be closed or open offshore seawall. There might be environmental impacts. So before you construct that, think about the possible solutions for the impacts. So not like, okay, we construct and then we think about the impacts after the construction. That is too late. We need to consider everything before the design starts or before the construction starts. Well, opting for offshore seawall is a very big decision. Because it's like you're closing the Jakarta Bay with a lot of people depending on the sea and with the rivers that are still dirty, and then you're kind of like trapping everything. This is going to be very huge problems, but at the same time, there might be like solutions for those, which I'm not sure how. Of course, we should talk with the environmentalists, with the local community experts, and all of them. Try to find the solutions. And yeah, for the adaptive pathways, I'm very interested actually, you say, because there's like some negative things from the adaptive pathways, which I would really like to know what those are, because what I understand so far is adaptive pathways help the decision makers to make like to adapt to the climate problems. For instance, if we have like coastal defense, like the thin wall that I showed you,
Yes.
of course it will not remain like that for the next 100 years. There should be like a planning from the decision makers. Okay, what should we do for the next 10 years? Should we like maintain the dike or make the dike wider? Should we opt for the offshore seawall, for instance, or should we plant like mangrove? And those should be considered based on the integral design principles. Of course, we could talk after this session again because I don't want to miss our lunch time.
No. Thank you,
Yeah.
thank you,
Of course, please,
thank you,
please. I would really
thank you
like
for
to
your
talk with
answer.
you.
But for me, just for your information, maybe it is also for us, for the cost NCICD, or I don't know,
Yep.
the update of the name right now.
Yeah, me too.
I think the government, the private company, the press, the media, and also the local people should know the
Yes.
same terminology,
Exactly.
because sometimes they call it dikes, sometimes they call it the wall, and sometimes they call it the coastal protection or something like that. And it's so confused, because in the Netherlands, I know the Witteven Bos, one of the leading consultant for this project, it is implemented the same way how the Amsterdam to be closed by Afsluitdijk. That's why they need to close the Jakarta Bay, and we can talk about it
course,
after lunch. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mas Aditya. So maybe that's all for this session. We can conclude our session. Talk about how we learn a lot about the gaps and the opportunities in strengthening climate change adaptation. So let's give a round of applause for our speakers for this session. I don't know. We have a conversation or not for our speakers. We have one. Oke, maybe bisa berdiri ya, mungkin kita foto dulu. Setelah ini mungkin ada pengumuman dulu dari Mbak Siti untuk kelanjutan acara. Di depan.
All right. Before we move on, thank you so much, everyone, for coming into this panel. We will continue another parallel panel in this room at around 1:20. So we have around 40 minutes for lunch and everything. For those who needs to pray, zuhur, musola is in this floor. Go to that direction. So move to the right, on top of the lobby. We have that musola. And lunch will be ready in the ballroom. So please go to the ballroom and taking your free lunch today. And see you again in this room at around 1:20. And thank you so much, everyone.
Recording stopped.
Iya sih. Ini di mana biasa? Coba minta kontak aku soalnya lost kontak sama. Soalnya kita aku kan sebenarnya selain di IAG ada di Inspire sama. Pakai rendering teknikal. Iya. Apa itu? Oh iya. Lah, kalau baca itu iya gue baca. Jadi kan itu pakai itu ya.
Udah setara.
Oh iya, setara ya.
Profesor dokter.
Ya,
Yuan di ruang mana?
Yuan mana ya?
Yuan paling prestasi deh.
Udah. Di sini gue.
mana meja? Dulu pernah kita mau mereplikasi Boeing punya Rin sama BMKG itu yang besar itu jadi yang kecil. Karena itu Boeing itu dia semacam pelampung sebenarnya tapi fungsinya untuk
Masuk Pak, saya Rido di Inspire juga.
oh alah.
Tapi belum pernah ketemu. Saya juga baru gabung grup storytelling yang buat ini. Sumatera.
Dulu ya.
Iya. Udah pernah ketemu? Belum pernah.
Ketemunya cuma di grup gabung grup 2 grup lagi kan. Siapa nih Mas Rido?
Menarik Mas tadi. Kebetulan aku sama tim itu lagi ini riset banyak potensi abrasi pesisir Bali gitu. Jadi nanti sebenarnya udah tahap akhir sih, udah selesai analisisnya gitu. Kita mau proyeksi 2045 terus mau buat masukan buat RT RW gitu. Jadi mungkin kapan-kapan kalau pas diseminasi bisa mengundang.
Siap, boleh banget. Kita juga soalnya bukannya gimana, kita juga cukup apa ya namanya agak greget ya.
Iya.
Karena banjir akhirnya ternyata Sumatera juga
sama aja
jadi
kayak kebanyakan tuh kalau kita lihat RT RW kan sebenarnya udah ada peta bencana Bali.
Benar.
Tapi kan itu tahun kapan, terus nggak ada skenario, nggak ada pertimbangan skenario iklim berubah apa enggak, kita nggak tahu.
Benar sih.
Jadi mungkin itu peta bener tahun 2004 tapi 2030 apa masih sama.
Dari data Inaris BNPB
Iya kan satu titik waktuan itu.
Canggu yang dulunya nggak banjir udah kena banjir.
Karena banjir, iya. Makanya kita mau kasih masukan RT RW harus mempertimbangkan ya skenario iklim. Jadi jangan peta bencana jangan satu titik waktu.
Benar.
Kan RT RW panjang ya 2045. Ya kan nggak mungkin bencana 2045 dipakai sama kan. Kecuali mungkin yang geological kayak tsunami, gempa bumi itu sama. Nah, kalau yang iklim ya. Nanti kita undang lah Mas. Tinggal dikit lagi.
Aku sebenarnya sama teman kalau di WRI tadi sama ini sebenarnya
Mas Sofian? Enggak.
Sama beli ini.
Oh, beli termana? Enggak.
Si ini yang bahas tentang ini kebanyakan transportasi.
Iya, kita kalau kebanyakan transportasi kalau di Bali ya.
Apa tuh
kalau yang kemarin acara Bali Climate gitu.
Itu termasuk baru mau bilang gitu.
Ikut nggak? Enggak. Oh ikut.
Aku ikut waktu hari awal akan ada sesi adaptasi juga.
Tapi itu berarti sempat kepake mas apa datanya untuk kemudian sempat advokasi wali kota Denpasar. Dan gara-gara itu akhirnya narasi yang berkembang di media sosial berbeda. Akhirnya kita kasih komentar itu baru paham lah. Ya ya. Akhirnya kalau kita compare sama sekarang angka tuh beda. Tapi yang keluar kecil dengan ya. Termasuk yang menjadi sangat temuan yang kita konsen itu adalah tidak adanya awareness system. Memang tapi sebelumnya belum pernah di pasar. Nah, akhirnya ada karena itu tadi kebijakan sampah pengelolaan sampah waktu pasca kemerdekaan tahun 2024 kemarin itu sampai asum itu oh nggak dia boleh Jogja ya milik Jogja itu orang kan bingung disuruh kelola sampahnya sendiri jadi pilah sampah segala macam keluar tapi tetap gitu karena mungkin ya tadi kembali ke masyarakat kehidupan tadi itu kan ada namanya halaman belakang di uang lembah ya yang dulu kan sampah organik sekarang plastik terus semuanya beririsan sama apa itu konsumsi. Aku kemarin ngobrol sama ibu gue, itu orang Bali. Dia lagi saya juga. Kasih manggilnya Bingkam Agung Wardana. Ini juga hari ini biasa. Kita tuh ada simulasi PTN. Oh, ngikut kalau itu aku mau nanya. Maksudku ikut kan aku tuh denger iya aku denger di YouTube tuh tapi ini yang buat yang banjir ya lagi manas-manasin orang-orang yang banjir dia tadi buat gajin juga kan udah ya udah masuk nah itu aku mau nanya dipakai nggak itu yang dipakai mendorong tidak adanya terus ternyata rencana kontingensi banjir itu 2016 akhirnya kadaluarsa tadi Sakti bilang kan bahwa dia tidak mengadopsi partner regulasinya dan termasuk juga penggalian dana kemarin yang lewat guru-guru itu kan juga membebani masyarakat itu banyak sekali sebenarnya tapi kalau setelah CLS itu memang akan ke arah tanggung jawab secara material tapi mendorong pemerintah mengeluarkan kebijakan kalau sudah ada kebijakan yang dikeluarkan diimplementasi supaya ada perubahan awalnya juga takut ngikut aku baru kemarin minggu lalu ke tempat ke rumahnya gitu ada di Jakarta acaranya kita lagi mengadvokasi yang di dokter kan di dokter kok kesehariannya kan juga seperti dialog yang di dokter tuh yang lebih masyarakat adalah Jenderal KSDAI sekarang kayak itu kehutanan yang mengeluarkan pengecualian wajib amdal sama satu OT yang memakat izin mengelola 80 hektar kawasan WA di Batur. Nah di mana masalahnya adalah di situ ada wisata adat dan di situ ada situs warisan geologi di pasar geologi oh ya jadi karena dia tidak diwajibkan amdal maka tidak ada dokumen hukum yang analisis dampak lingkungan tapi kenapa dibebaskan dari peradilan ngeribut di situ yang sebenarnya akhirnya menjadi masalahnya kenapa Jenderal KSDAI yang mengeluarkan itu harusnya itu bentuknya tingkat menteri yang mengeluarkan pengecualian wajib amdal itu bisa kalau misalkan daerah itu tidak berada di sensitivitas atau risiko tinggi jadi masalahnya di situ kan risiko tinggi beririsan sama kawasan bencana ini anak bimbingannya dulu. Aku lulus itu 2023. Mulai 2023. Hukum lingkungan aku juga. Jadi aku ininya sama dia banyak, malah jadi deket, malah udah jadi kayak teman lah sekarang. Kolega.
Paham kok, emang telat kan tadi soalnya. Bapak nggak apa santai. Hilang atau gimana gitu.
Cek cek. Cek cek. Cek cek. Cek cek.
Bahan-bahannya nanti di mana sih dapatnya? Sayang kan kalau nggak dapat bahannya nggak sih? Harusnya kan ngatur-ngatur.
Iya.
Cek cek.
tweet aja. Beri harus berdua ya? Paketnya. Jalannya barengan ya berarti. Harus dempet ya? Siap, thank you.
Oke, kita mulai aja. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Recording in progress.
Selamat siang semuanya, rekan-rekan peneliti, presenter, dan juga pemerhati. Di sini saya akan membawakan paralel panel yang judulnya itu adalah, bentar nyontek dulu, Integrating Climate Resilience into Urban Transport System, Lessons from Indonesian Cities. Bapak Ibu hadirin sekalian, temanya sangat relevan karena saat ini juga kita, yang kita tahu ya, sedang menghadapi bencana di Sumatera bagian utara, di Aceh, turut berduka juga dan berbelasungkawa atas para korban. Tapi intinya adalah kita merasa sangat penting untuk memiliki resiliensi terutama di sektor transportasi. Banyak aspeknya, salah satunya adalah untuk distribusi bantuan ya, kalau konteksnya di Aceh. Yang menarik juga, Indonesia punya banyak sekali kota-kota pesisir. Dari sekitar 100 kota yang ada di Indonesia, kebanyakan berada di pesisir. Nah, siang hari ini kita akan mencoba melihat bagaimana peneliti-peneliti kita melakukan riset terhadap kota-kota yang berada di pesisir. Kita mempunyai 4 pembicara dengan 3 presenter yang akan saya panggil berikut ini. Bentar, ini contekannya. Nah, ini kalau jam-jam makan siang harus agak lucu sedikit kalau ntar ngantuk. Tapi tenang, materi paparannya harusnya menarik ya, Bapak Ibu semua. Nah, ini dia. Saya harusnya punya waktu 5 menit, tapi rasanya cukup. Kita langsung aja to the point kepada 3 paparan dan 4 presenter kita. Yang pertama, dengan hormat saya memanggil Ibu Cynthia Jasmine Gunarso selaku Independent Researcher yang akan memaparkan kajian dengan judul Mainstreaming Climate Resilience in Urban Mobility Policy, a Review of Semarang Cities Transportation Master Plan. Silakan, Ibu. Kita berikan tepuk tangan dulu. Apologize. Turns out that the main language should be in English. So, sorry for misunderstanding, but yeah, this is to make everyone fully aware and awake. So the first presenter, Miss Cynthia Jasmine Gunarso, is already in the stage together with me. Title, Mainstreaming Climate Resilience in Urban Mobility Policy, a Review of Semarang Cities Transportation Master Plan. Okay, please be seated. And the second presenter, the second topic with 2 presenters, will be presented by both named Fahri Mungkasa, and the other one is Fahri Santosa. Please be seated at the stage. They will present research titled Participatory Urban Transport Planning to Raise the Social Mobility of Urban Slum Communities in Jakarta, Indonesia. The last but not least, our presenter, please give a warm applause to Alfrida Ista Anindya, or Miss Yaya, will present research titled Mainstreaming Climate Risk in Urban Transportation Policy through an Integrated Spatial Approach for Road Network Vulnerability Assessment and Prioritization, a tidal flooding case study in Semarang. Please be seated. So again, as I explained earlier, that this topic is timely because we all know that Indonesia is facing a severe disaster in the northern part of Sumatra and also Aceh. Resilience is a pivotal issue that we need to solve, particularly on distributing the logistics, but also to be prepared not to repeat the same mistakes again. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to the first presenter, Miss Cynthia Jasmine Gudarso. The stage is yours for 10 minutes.
Good afternoon, everybody. So, as someone who grew up in Semarang, I've always heard a song, Semarang kali ini banjir, or the river is flooding. But now I witnessed that it's not only about the river, it's also about the sinking train station, bus terminal, and probably the airport. So my name is Cynthia Jasmine Gudarso. As an urban planner and also urban mobility enthusiast, I would like to share reflection from home, Mainstreaming Climate Resilience in Urban Mobility Policy, a review of Semarang City's Transportation Master Plan. So, Semarang is a key transportation and economic hub not only for Central Java, but also because it connects two largest cities in Indonesia, Jakarta and Surabaya. Its location made it high urbanization rate that leads to high level of private vehicle ownership that can up to 12% per year. Besides becoming the source of greenhouse gas emission, as a coastal city, Semarang also faces sea level rise, increased rainfall intensity, and also extreme heat. Within 2 weeks, on October 2025, Semarang experienced two different phenomena, extreme heat and flood. Unfortunately, the main transportation hubs such as Ahmadiyani International Airport, Tawang Station, and the bus terminal is sinking, as you can see on the picture. That it's also located in high-risk flood zone, as you can see on the map that depicts the red zone. So Semarang is actually have the Transportation Master Plan in 2024. However, to what extent does it mainstream climate mitigation, adaptation, and also justice is still even unclear. So that's why we conducted a research using qualitative content analysis with the process of, first, we did the literature review using the international framework, national, and also local regulations. From this literature, we took important keywords to become the codes for climate issue codes, mitigation codes, adaptation codes, and also justice codes. Those codes were analyzed with the content of Semarang City's Transportation Master Plan, and so that we have the gap assessment and conclusion. The scope of this research is focused on the plan chapter and also program and strategies of the master plan. So this is the codes for analysis. We came up with 4 groups: climate issue on transportation, climate mitigation, climate adaptation, and also climate justice. For the climate issue on transportation, we came up with 3 codes: greenhouse gas inventory and emission trend, climate change risk to transportation assessment, and institutional and community capacity. For the climate mitigation, we came up with 4 codes: avoid, shift, improve, and also supply side infrastructure. For the adaptation group, we came up with 4 codes: protect, accommodate, retreat, and operational adaptation. And for the last group, which is climate justice, we came up with distributive justice, which talk about the fairness between individuals, including low-income groups. The second is procedural justice that talk about the citizen participation and also decision making. And the third is recognitional justice that talk about the respect of diverse culture or ethnicity. So this is the result. For the first group, which is climate issue in transportation, for the first codes, we have the greenhouse gas emission and emission trend. The master plan, unfortunately, has no no clear greenhouse gas baseline, threat, or reduction target. Even though it's already talk about the awareness to monitor air pollution through adding air quality monitoring stations. For the second quote, which is climate change risk to transportation assessment, unfortunately it's not incorporated at all. And for the last quote, institutional and community capacity, the master plan already mentioned it, but it's still in limited manner, since it's only talk about the vision of ecological maintenance, transportation, and Semarang, and the emission tax. For the second group, which is the climate mitigation, first quotes is avoid that such as transit-oriented development and also compact and walkable urban form. This quotes, we have the interpretation of two conflicting ideas between economic distribution and ecological sustainability that show on the strengthened radial rate or ring roads to distribute activity which is not developed yet in western part of Semarang city. So Semarang has to distribute its economic, but if it's poorly managed, it can induce urban sprawl. However, it's also mentioned about the downtown area to be walkable area. So it's actually kind of two conflicting ideas regarding avoid or making a compact and walkable city. For shift or model shift and non-motorized transport, it's explicitly mentioned with its time frame and its location. For the third quote, which is improve, such as electrification and transport digitalization, it's also explicitly mentioned, however, it's still lack of specific strategies, target, and also timelines. While for the fourth, which is supply side infrastructure, such as charging station, it's also explicitly mentioned and its location. For the climate adaptation, the first quote is protect. So the master plan is already mentioned about the mangrove, which is the nature-based measure. However, since Semarang is facing land subsidence, so mangrove is not enough. Critical transport hub requires a complementary hard infrastructure. For the second quote, accommodate or such as elevation, footproofing, drainage, and also pumping. The master plan already mentioned about improving drainage system, but it's still limited because the key risk is actually the sinking train station, bus terminal, and probably the airport. So the third is retreat or relocation or resettlement. Even though the master plan already mentioned about Terboyo terminal that has been converted into freight transfer parking area, however, again, it's not mentioned about the key risk, which is the sinking of train station and also the airport. And for the last operational adaptation, such as rerouting and emergency plan, is not incorporated at all. For the climate justice, first is distributive justice. It's actually have mentioned a lot about it, such as subsidy and also safety and comfort for people and also charging station in some places. However, it didn't have further explanation regarding justice for low-income groups, such as how people in low income access e-bike or how they pay for the charging station and something kind of that. For the procedural, it's also, again, unfortunately not mentioning at all about citizen participation on the formation of the master plan, even though it's already mentioned about the formation of city transportation council that unfortunately it's exclusively on the local agencies. And for the recognitional justice, which is talking about the ethnicity, it's also not mentioning at all about justice for vulnerable ethnicity. So the conclusion is, the first about the climate issue on transportation, it didn't incorporate it there, and it's still a limited manner. There's no emission data for reduction goals, there's no climate risk assessment for adaptation, and for the climate mitigation, it's explicitly mentioned well there. However, for the adaptation, it's contrary. It didn't mention anything, especially regarding sinking train station and also airport. And for the climate justice, it also didn't explicitly facilitate how low-income groups can access climate resilience and also climate-friendly transportation, and it didn't mention about citizen participation on it. For the recommendation, since knowing what the challenge, what the issue is very important. So emission data for targeting emission reduction is very important, and then the risk assessment also important to be adaptive. And the second is the adaptation formulation should not leading to maladaptation. So maladaptation is adaptation that leads to harmful thing. So there's a adaptation that didn't work, it didn't give any impact. However, maladaptation is give another negative impact on it. And the last one is transportation master plan should regulate how every citizen has equal access to climate resilience for the adaptive and also climate friendly for the mitigation transportation. Okay, I think that's all. Thank you for your attention and let's discuss.
Thank you, Ms. Cynthia, for the presentations. It's really interesting that Semarang already has a transportation master plan that, to some extent, it mentions about the climate mitigation and climate adaptations. So, well, this is kind of funny because in this panel we have two different cities, Jakarta and Semarang. So, if I may, can we move to another speakers that also taking their research in Semarang? So I mean, like to be eloquent between one to another. Yeah, because there are two research that focusing on Semarang city. So, excuse me for both Fahri. We will skip you for another Semarang session, so that our audience will get a thorough and complete review on Semarang conditions. So next presenter will be Alfreda or Miss Yaya that will speak about the mainstreaming climate risk in urban transport policy. So previously we know that transport planning is already exists in Semarang. So this is about the tidal flooding case study in Semarang. So without further ado, the floor is yours, Yaya.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alfreda, or you can call me Yaya. I'm from WRI Indonesia, and today in this section, I will share about part of my research with my research partner also here, Mr. Afrizal Ma'arif, he also here. And for today in this section, I will share about how climate risk, especially tidal flooding, are reshaping the way we plan and think in the field of urban transport planning. So maybe next. And in this case study, I will share about the intervention and so on. Maybe next. Okay, let's do the context. Maybe all of you, I think not maybe, all of you must agree, right? Like transportation keeps cities moving. It's connect to people or us to moving, to go jobs, services, and connect to many opportunity. But sadly, coastal city, I think not just in coastal city, but so many cities are facing a growing challenge. But specifically in the coastal city, their transport system are increasingly exposed to the climate-related disruption, especially in this case is tidal flooding. But if we talk about the Indonesia, maybe next, in Indonesia, most of transport infrastructure losses is from the road infrastructure. And sadly, about if we talk about the policy or maybe research or maybe target, mostly just focus on the mitigation side, but not really address the adaptation of how to adapt with this condition, right? Like mostly, I think, mostly the policy or target just focus on decarbonizing, renewable energy, or maybe public transport, but not really address how we adapt with this climate, like especially it's tidal flooding in this case study. And we think this is the crucial gap. And why we chose Semarang as the case study. So we'll talk about why Semarang, maybe next. Okay, once again, please. Once again. Okay, why we chose Semarang City. So as mentioned before, Semarang City is the heart of Central Java. It's very logistic, industry, transportation and also trade in the central Java and also in the north of Java Island, I think. But beneath the strength lies a fragile reality. As mentioned before, in the Semarang city is highly vulnerable for several disasters, like in this case study is tidal flooding. And the next, in the tidal flooding in the Semarang city is repeatedly in the major road, like in Jalan Semarang Demak, or we call Jalan Pantura or Jalan Kaligawe. I think this street is kind of viral for several times. I think in the September or October also viral because the tidal flooding, and the flood in this road is stand up to 50 centimeter and disrupting the mobility. And again, as mentioned before, in the transport planning in the smart city is not really, I think not really reflect how to adapt with this thing or how to assess the risk of disaster risk to the transport system. They have such action but not really assess how the risk can affect the transport system in the smart city. So this is the gap that we see, and we try to fill this gap. And to fill this gap, maybe next, in our study, we think we cannot just stop in mapping the tidal flooding risk or the risk map, but we try to look at the three components that determine how transport system deal with the climate risk. And to deal with the climate risk, the transport planning should consider the three key components. The first one is the hazard, like what threatens the network, and the second is vulnerability, which roads are exposed and how critical they are. Maybe I will give you the disclaimer for this case study. Just focus on in the road transport. So we will assess about the road transport vulnerability. And the third component is adaptive capacity, whether the system can respond or recover efficiently. So for this methodology, we try to combine these three key components and propose an integrated spatial framework with two-stage analysis. The first one, we try to assess vulnerability level for each road in Semarang City with combine two variables. The first variable is about the tidal risk level and also the level of traffic volume for each road in Semarang. And after that, for the stage 2, we try to analysis also with the spatial analysis and try to prioritize for each road which one that maybe need the first consideration or have a high priority. Maybe I will talk a little bit detail in the result. And after we do the analysis, we found that around maybe 10.6% of Semarang's roads are exposed to the tidal flooding. And these are not just a small road or big roads or neighborhood street, but also in the arterial and the collectoral roads. And how can you imagine if this road get flooded, the city maybe can slow or maybe can just stop for a while. And after we analyze this, we can see the level for each road, the level of vulnerability for each road in the Semarang city, especially in the north of Semarang. And next, and after we identify the vulnerability for each road, we think it's not enough, so we move forward to the next stage. We think we need to know where the road that need the first attention. So we add training performance level for variable, and we try to classify the priority for each road, and we combine the tidal flooding risk level and traffic volume level and also the training condition, and we try to classify the level of priority. And for our analysis, we found that several segments become very high priority, especially one of example is Jalan Kaligawe or Jalan Semarang Demak or maybe Jalan Pantura. And this is kind of clear that Kaligawe, when the road is failed, mobility across Semarang is affected, especially in the north of Semarang. You can see all the news about this Kaligawe or Jalan Pantura. And recently, I think the government have initiative to build infrastructure like giant seawall that integrate the Jalan Tol or runway with the seawall as an alternative and also as a as a infrastructure to protect the Jalan Kaligawe from flooding. And after this, we find some interesting finding also. After we do an analysis, biospatial analysis, we found that a single road can have a different priority level along its segment. Like this means one seismic solution simply maybe will not work in this kind of case study. So we propose or we recommend if we want to make an adaptation plan or intervention, must consider the spatial data or spatial analysis to make sure the intervention can more accurate and suitable for the field condition. And the last but not least, about the policy implication for our study, maybe next, we found that our finding point us toward an action. Cities cannot plan for tomorrow's climate, while we're living in the tomorrow's reality. Transport planning must start to integrating climate risk assessment as not just casually but systematically into their transport planning document. Sorry. And to do that, we recommend that cities can maybe follow or adapt the transport planning step, maybe next from this framework. Maybe we recommend government or policymaker can adapt this step like establishing scope, data analysis, and funding implementation, and also option and solution. Sorry, I make mistake to spelling this step, but the first step is establishing scope, the second one is data analysis, the third is option solution, and the last but not least is funding implementation. And we hope when we try to implement this step can adopt the approach that we propose in this methodology of case study before. And next, maybe this is one of the example from the Victoria, Australia. They have a trusted system climate change adaptation plan, and after we maybe read this document, we can see that they implement the 4 steps that I mentioned before. And I think maybe we in Indonesia with this so many challenges, maybe should consider to make some document like this. And next. Okay, move forward to the conclusion and the recommendation. I think we have 3 final messages. The first one is an integrated framework that we propose can identify or can help to identify which road segments really matter. And the second is transport adaptation is still underdeveloped, especially in the adaptation side and the risk assessment to the transport system. And the third is coastal mobility must be resilient. And how to make the coastal mobility must be resilient? We recommend that policymakers to encourage climate risk mobility assessment in their planning process. So I think our finding is really matched with previous presenter. So thank you for the attention and good afternoon.
Please give a. Okay, please give. Check, check. Okay. Hello. Check. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Yaya, for presenting and amplifying the first presenter on how severe Semarang tidal flood will be, and we need to integrate more the analysis on the public policy documents. So, moving on to another city, we have Jakarta here, and we also have 2 presenters that will explain to you on the participatory planning, particularly on the urban slum communities in Jakarta. So, please give a warm applause to the presenters, Fahri Santosa and Fahri Mungkasa.
Tes. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you have been enjoying today's festivities and certainly the insights from Semarang cities.
Right. Hello?
Okay. It's on already.
Right.
my name is Fari Mukasa, otherwise known as Ali, and today I'm accompanied by one of my colleagues here.
Hi everyone, let me introduce myself. I'm also Fahri. Yeah, so we're going to be presenting a bit on the participatory urban transport planning terrain social mobility of urban slums in Jakarta.
All right, next slide, please. Here's a little bit about the outline. That is the introduction, the literature review, the methods, results, and discussion, as well as the conclusion. Next slide, please. Right. According to the Ministry of PUPR, slum is an inappropriate way to live where there is low-quality buildings and highly dense populated, as well as a lack of infrastructure that is few and far between in the area. This condition, slum, is pretty much prevalent in Jakarta because Jakarta is often seen as the promised land where people try to find better opportunities there, to which they often find that the land prices are often sky high and it's physically impossible for them to afford it. Therefore, oftentimes they are often spread in areas where it's cheap, but then it's really far away and certain and oftentimes dangerous. Next slide, please. Multiple studies have shown that the urban poor, and especially the least advantaged one, are often placed far from central business districts, and this finding is often is supported by several studies, such as by Jensen et al. And as well as Lestari et al. According to Jensen, Jakarta is one of the cities being studied by them. They have a negative relationship between income and distance from the central business district, and so people with less income are located further and further away from central business districts. The same thing can be said on Lestari et al. Findings, where they found that segregation settle people in different types of locations. Next slide, please. Well then, this is made worse by Jakarta's transport planning scheme, where it has been historically skewed towards road transportation. This reinforces the disadvantages faced by the urban poor, which makes it harder for them to travel and find better opportunities, as well as access to facilities as well as infrastructure. Next slide, please. With all these things in mind, we have come up with two research questions. The first one is, how could participatory urban transport planning improve transport options for slum communities in Jakarta, Indonesia? And the second one is, in what ways could improving transport accessibility and affordability result in higher social mobility for slum communities in Jakarta? Next slide, please.
Okay, so next we'll be going over the literature review that we went through for this study. So basically, with participatory urban planning, it takes many forms, and it's also guided by a range of purposes and also the degree of redistribution of power. So in this way, planners are obliged to engage citizens and to determine how planning problems are defined, what kinds of knowledge are used, and also how decision making is contextualized. Yes.
Right, yes, it is often the case, we're now moving over to mobility and the urban poor. It is often the case that people living in low-income areas are scattered far from major job centers, and this signifies the importance of, or the critical precondition of having mobility. However, it is often the case that the commuting cost is high, the services are often unreliable, and then there is always the weak last mile connectivity. This has resulted in the low income community struggling to maintain job stability, as well as finding job opportunities, let alone better job opportunities. Next slide, please.
And in this study, we also propose that transit-oriented development should be implemented as a means of reducing social inequity. So as a concept, TOD, or transit-oriented development, is a planning and also design strategy that consists in promoting urban development that is compact, mixed use, pedestrian and bicycle friendly, and also closely integrated with mass transit by clustering jobs, houses, services, and also amenities around public transport stations. And there's several benefits, but we highlighted the main three. So firstly, the TOD prioritizes the modes that many low-income people, marginalized groups, and women, and also caregivers use daily. So it's quite inclusive, actually. Secondly, TOD reduces the time burden to travel to destinations, especially important for time-constrained caregivers, which pretty much means that people become more productive. And finally, people of all income levels can live within walking distances of basic services, jobs, and also transit. Next.
All right. Moving over to the methods. For this study, we use a qualitative case study. It's, to be specific, it is the singular case study using exploratory approach to located or situated in northern part of Jakarta. This case study in particular seeks to see whether there are patterns that are relatively unexplored, for which this will be used as a suggestions for further research. Next slide, please. And the result from our studies, we found that there is a lack of connectivity in northern part of Jakarta, which compared to other parts of Jakarta is a far cry. For instance, the numbers of Transjakarta bus stations are also in the least in Jakarta Utara, which with only 22 units compared. This is certainly not an ideal way to live, and especially a hamper or a hindrance to the people's way of living. Next slide, please.
So in this case, to increase inclusivity of the urban slum communities, we propose some sort of framework using the 3 dimensions of TOD, which include the node, place, and economic value dimensions of TOD with several aspects between them. So firstly, we start with the node value, which pretty much covers the aspects of transfer capacity and also accessibility. And in these cases, at least for transfer capacity, we start with a recommended indicator within participatory planning. So firstly, there's the facilitation of public transport or transfer numbers. This means that people in urban slums can access public transport or transfers to go to other areas. And then there's also the convenience of pedestrian pathways, which means that people are more comfortable with walking in pedestrian walkways. Then with accessibility, we pretty much try to look at the average distance from stations to underserved communities, and then the average distance to employment facilities such that there are more employment opportunities for these communities, and also finally average distance to recreation and also commercial facilities for basic needs and also everyday needs. Then we look at the place value, which discusses land use diversity and also land development intensity. So land use diversity basically looks at the proportion of land accessible to marginalized communities. So it's basically a ratio. Then we look at the land development intensity, which looks at the ratio of employment and also recreational facilities to the total number of facilities. So this basically means that the more dense it is, we imply that there's more employment and more recreational facilities for basic people's needs. Then there's the economic value, which discusses job housing features such as weekday commuting population density per income class, so that we see that there's a distribution there. Then we also look at the weekend commuting population per income class, so that we see that the slum communities can actually use public transport and that they're actually accessible. And finally, we look at the employed population density with catchment radius. So here we look at the employed population density that has access to accessible public transportation. And finally, we look at the balance of economic activity to look at the unevenness of the distribution of enterprises using a Gini index. Next. And in this part, we've already discussed about what needs to be implemented and what the deficiencies are, but now we discuss about what can it provide. So like this participatory planning and also TOD. So basically it can improve the access of the transport options through participatory approach for the urban slum communities in Jakarta, which would result in the opening options of the communities to access a larger socio-economic communities, which means a high opportunities to improve their social mobility from that which there was none to more accessible things. And through TOD as well, people in the slum areas can actually improve the environmental quality through shifting their means of transport to public transports. Next. So all in all, transport mobility has a connection with a higher social mobility of the slum communities, especially to expand the socioeconomic networks, and redefining meaningful participation in transport planning should be done to be more inclusive and also sustainable to improve socioeconomic conditions of slum communities in Jakarta. And for further research, we also plan on a methodology to define inclusive urban transport planning as well. So yeah, that's all from us. Thank you, and let's have a talk about this.
Thank you, Fahri and Fahri. So we already have 3 presentations on mainly coastal cities. Both both presenters, last presenters, talking about Jakarta. So now I'd like to open the floor for questions regarding Semarang and Jakarta conditions. Jakarta for the participations of poor communities, and Semarang for the tidal or even the transport master plan. Do we have hand raise here? Not yet. Online, do we have questions? Okay, yeah, we do have one hand raise. Please go ahead, Pak Arif. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much to the speakers. I've just listened to the last 2 speakers. My name is Arif Vijay from WRI Indonesia. So, especially for the case of Jakarta, what is? Can you please elaborate? Of course, we believe that. I also believe that the participatory planning may result in better decisions, including also to plan the urban mobility in cities like Jakarta or even in Semarang. My point is, practically, can you explain a little bit more detail to us how we could potentially involve the local communities, including also disabilities, perhaps also women or young generations, the youth, how can I say, in planning the transport system in the megapolitan cities like Jakarta. As I think last week I just read that now Jakarta megapolitan city is actually the largest megapolitan city worldwide, right? And Tokyo actually comes after Jakarta. So yeah, would love to hear your perspectives on this, perhaps also from other speakers, because I think this is really relevant, given the fact that also what I've read last week, either Jakarta will be growing like Tokyo the next 10 or 20 years, or like Dhaka in Bangladesh over the next 10 or 20 years, which is actually very crowded, unsystematic, lack of public transport and so on. So, thanks.
Thank you, Pak Arif, for your questions. Please go ahead, Fahri and Fahri.
Yeah, thank you, Bari, for your question. This is actually a really interesting topic, since we kind of discussed the higher level stuff, but I think practically, and I think I've also had recent discussions with several transport professors from the University of Indonesia. One of them was Pa Alvin Shah. One conversation I had was that it's important to include the underserved communities, so people from slums, and also those with disabilities to be included in the planning, so through FGDs and also through consistent consultations as well. And I think recognition of those types of those people should actually be recognized, and also during the implementation stage, let's say, of a certain public transport facility. One interesting thing that he mentioned also was that his experience of inviting people with disabilities, so people with wheelchairs or people that actually live in the urban slums, to use them, so that they gain first priority to use, let's say, new public transport facilities. And I think that's actually a really important point that a lot of these things leave out. Other than that, I think the indicators that I also covered earlier with the transit-oriented development are actually quite oriented towards underserved communities. So I think that's also one more inclusion that I would include to like several master plans, so not only Jakarta but other cities as well. I think that's very important to include a lot of those underserved communities, especially those living in urban slums and also those that have experienced social exclusion. So I think that's how I would practically include that.
Thank you, Fahri, for responding to the questions. So, let's see whether there are hand raised or head nodded. If not, then I'll proceed with my own question. So I just initiate a question to be asked for all presenters. So you all have the recommendation for the government. And this conference particularly wants to have a policy recommendation, right? And as a policy makers, they don't have resources for executions. They do have limitations. So what are your prioritizations for your recommendations according to the easiest one? So which of your recommendation that would be your low-hanging fruit to be implemented, and which one of your recommendations that belongs to the heaviest recommendation to be implemented? Who wants to go first?
Okay.
Please, Miss Cynthia.
Okay. Okay, thank you. I went with 3 recommendations, and I think the most initial thing to do is to know that what actually the curious of the transportation in Semarang is very important. So I placed it on the first place that Semarang government should know what is the key risk, the risk assessment, and also the emission data, because I think to know how to mitigate or how to reduce, we have to know the baseline. So we can know how many percentage we have to lower it, and for the risk assessment as well, because to know what to adapt, we have to know the hazard first. So yeah, I think that's the most important part of the recommendation.
Yeah, and I believe that's also the easiest one to understand the existing or the baseline conditions. Please go ahead, Ms. Yaya.
Okay, thank you for the question. Maybe I'm totally agree with Miss Cynthia about the government should understand and know that the transport system can be affected by the climate risk or hazard, and they should to consider the risk assessment to transport system. Not really so difficult for the assessment, maybe just an overlay. I think it's quite easy to do, and I think the data is available in the city, like not only in Semarang, and I think in every city have a risk map. I think it's quite feasible to do, and the hard things to do, I think, is mainstreaming this kind of idea about the risk assessment in the transport system until the national level. But because I think right now the national level just focus on in the mitigation side, like decarbonizing, electrification, and I think it's something that may be quite hard to do right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yaya. So amplify the first presenter as well on the importance of understanding the problem first before go ahead with the solutions. Last but not least, which one of you? Then okay, so give the other Fahri. Okay, please go ahead.
Right. Thank you for the question. I feel like the quote-unquote easiest is to introduce the institutional changes needed to involve the low-income communities into planning, because most of the time recognizing their needs, their voices, that it's not always apparent what they really want, and so incorporating that into not only Musrembang, local governments need to be actively involving them more than Musrembang. So there needs to be more arena where they can voice their concerns and for their voices to be heard. And on top of that, I think the hardest will then manifesting these proposed changes, because, of course, as you mentioned earlier, it's not cheap. It's really expensive to manifest these changes, be it to add just another public transport, be it to add another trajectory where they can visit the places. It's really hard to make that a reality. And so knowing full well that our local expenditure is not always up to par with the needs of the city, it's it's a challenge that we really have to think about together. I mean, of course, there are advances in innovative financing instruments that we can use, but then these instruments will have to will have to be utilized together to provide the necessary impacts needed to provide actual changes in our transport scheme in the city. I think that would be my answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presenters. My conclusion for this panel is, sorry? Oh, okay, yeah, apparently, well, okay, before I conclude the sessions, turns out there is one question to my Telegram, so wait a sec. So, so the question went like this. I'm just curious, aren't we difficult to imagining integrated transportations and the use of public transport if most of destinations were accessible only through private vehicle? There was wide parking lot or basement area, or maybe in Semarang, I thought not much pedestrian and open space where people could not gather for walk or doing activities without any mobilities on average. So the questions focus on the coverage area of public transports, whereby if a lot of destinations do not have access to public transport, equals to less people using public transport because there's no options, right? Who wants to respond to the questions? The other Fahri, maybe? Okay, the other Fahri for these questions.
Okay, thank you for that question. So that's actually a really interesting topic in that if several areas don't have access to public transportation, then people can't actually go to them. So I think this is a very unique case. I think I'll talk personally because I personally live in Cibubur, and in Cibubur there's an area called Kota Wisata that doesn't have public transport. So yes, it's very difficult. So I'm pretty sure at one point that there was plans to build Transjakarta in that area, but ultimately it didn't quite happen because firstly, I think the local government was quite opposed to that, and also the local residents actually opposed that because it kind of disturbs their peace, sort of, because then you have people coming into the area for like shopping and also business, but then there's also people that actually just want to live their day-to-day lives there. So I think sometimes with these developments is that it's hard to get the buy-in of relevant stakeholders. So not only just the people planning it, but also the people that live in the area. So yeah, there's also like debate on that, and that's actually a really interesting topic. But I would say it's very important to get the buy-in and actually to show them that what are the spillover effects from this development. I think that's also something that that's rarely been seen, you know, because often with planning, people don't really assess what comes next, what happens to the people. So, you know, there's several indicators that I've read from studies that can actually help explain that, such as increased productivity through transport, and also the local GDP can rise. But I guess what happens to the local residents there should be a point as well there too. So that's how I would answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahri. Anyone wants to add? Please, Miss Cynthia.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I think why people mobile is because they want to fulfill their needs. And what if their needs is nearby them? So such transit-oriented development is actually one of the solutions, maybe, because people can walk, people can bike anywhere to fulfill their needs. They don't have to ride their private vehicle. They don't even need on quote public transportation because it's all walkable actually. So I think to amplify their research, building walkable and also bike friendly environment is very important because maybe we can access many places and fulfill our needs by walking and by cycling. Maybe that's all. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, you want to add?
I want to add some a little bit answer. So, what if the location, the existing condition is they don't have any public transport? I think it's quite, and the destination, their destination is far away. So maybe as a researcher right now, maybe that I can do, I will share about the what we can found that from our research that to do tackle this challenge like the climate change and so on. Maybe we will talk to the government or maybe people in there like to mainstreaming this issue and get to their know like this is something important to you to consider, and maybe the next year or maybe 10 years again maybe you should to planning this kind of TOD or something like this. Maybe this is my answer. Thank you.
Okay, I think those are perfect answers to wrap up these sessions in which we discuss about the supply side from the mobility side as well as from the land use side, from the TOD side. And yeah, we believe that changes should begin small, as from understanding the correct problems is a half of the answering and responding to the challenges itself. So let's give a round of applause to the presenter here. My name is Dimas from WRI Indonesia, and the panel session is over. Thank you, everyone. Oh, foto bareng.
All presenter may be foto bareng dulu. Take a group photo. Please check. Yeah. Maybe you should somewhere. No. Just kidding. No. Okay, thank you everyone for coming to panel 6. After this, we will be having our second plenary about the sustainable ocean food system, kind of like that. I don't really remember the official name. So please proceed to the ballroom area, and we will having also a poster presentation. So stay tuned and choose your favorite poster in the first floor of this building. Thank you so much, everyone.
Recording stopped.
Di-share.
Di-share ke semua orang. Aduh, ya Allah, ya Allah.
Siap.
Makasih banyak, Mas.
Oke.
Dari UI lanjut ke sini, habis ini kemana lagi, Mas?
Gue mau ke DI.